Inside the Mind of a Successful Trader, Part 3. If you have not seen the other 2 parts, you can find them on my YouTube channel with the same title listed, Parts 1 and 2. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. What we've been talking about so far is trading psychology consisting of the thoughts and beliefs as well as emotions and feelings that you have related to trading, related to the behavior of trading, and also to yourself as the trader. So we've been talking about the importance of trading psychology is in that trading psychology, our thoughts, beliefs, and our emotions are really what impacts our behavior. And that in turn impacts our performance. So when we have trading psychology that is effective, it's working well, it's serving us well, our behavior is positively impacted and our performance is improved. Okay. So in addition to the technical aspects, the method or the model that you use as a trader, your risk management, what really is of importance is your trading psychology. And this is true if you're intermediate level trader, experienced level trader, anywhere in there. And also if you're a new trader, super important. But even if you're intermediate to experienced and you're not able to consistently achieve consistent profitability, this is an important area for you to take a look at, because likely it isn't your method or your model or your risk management. It's something about you as a trader, your trading psychology, that is impacting your ability to be consistently profitable. We all know that losing is 100% part of the game. That never goes away. We can't get rid of that. But sometimes that can be some of the most challenging aspects of trading, to accept the loss that we take, and also to not let those losses impact us as a trader. Part of that is keeping the risk appropriate for your account, for your risk tolerance, but also making sure that it's not taking a toll on us, right? I know for me personally, this is an area that I'm having to give a lot of focus to, because if you're anything like me, the more I struggle, the more I'm challenged by trading, the worse decisions that I make. So it's awful to be in that situation. I think a lot of traders talk about this, but it's like we get in this vicious cycle of the fight, flight, and freeze response, right? So for me, the more I get in a situation where I want to react or respond, it's not in positive ways, right? It's like it is detrimental to the trading process. And so that's what we're working on. And it's a continuous process. So you can be an advanced trader and still be impacted by your trading psychology and still need to continually work on focusing on and emphasizing your trading psychology, making sure that your thoughts, beliefs, and your emotions are working well for you. And the reason I like to highlight the thoughts and beliefs is because emotions happen naturally. They come about organically. It's very difficult to change your emotions. You can distance yourself from your emotions so that you can have more mastery over them, but that is very difficult to do. It is possible, but it's difficult. But your thoughts are really accessible. You can change your thoughts. You can tell yourself whatever it is that you want to believe, whatever it is that is helpful to you as a trader. You have the ability to emphasize those to yourself prior to trading, during the trading process, and even after the trading day has concluded, to really, really emphasize and practice that. I would love to hear from you. If any of this resonates with you and this sounds like something that you're dealing with or you're thinking about or you're struggling with, feel free to drop a comment in the chat. Let me know, yes, that's you. This resonates with you, or this is helpful, or whatever. I would love to hear from you. Okay. So again, the reason we're targeting the thoughts is because they're much easier to control and to not manipulate, but like change and have mastery over. Again, we can have mastery over emotions, but it's a lot more difficult. Okay. And emotions, like I said, can be regulated, meaning they can be turned down and adjusted, but tackling your thoughts and your beliefs is much easier. So you can tell yourself what you want to believe. Sometimes it doesn't ring true in the moment when you have emotions on the line, when you're in an open trade. Sometimes you don't believe certain things, but prior to trading, before emotions were involved, before money was involved, it is something that you truly believed. So it is truth. It just doesn't resonate with you in the moment. And you can remind yourself of those things ahead of time during visualization, during the mindset warm up. You can practice in the moment. So when you're in an open trade, you can be saying the things that you want to remember, almost like a mantra, reminding yourself over and over again what it is that you what you want to remember. And then also debriefing, basically debriefing after. I always go on a walk with my husband and we talk trading. But maybe that's something we can do in the Discord too at some point, have an opportunity to talk about. Sometimes just saying it out loud is just such a relief, right? You can also journal. Journal if that is something that you're into. You can say a lot in your journal. I'm not much of a journaler, so I like to say very little, just the very basics. But these are all ways that we can help get mastery and control over our thoughts and therefore have an impact on our emotions. Okay. Also, it's important to think very carefully about what are the thoughts and beliefs that are true, that serve you, and which ones don't. And we can emphasize and focus on eliminating the ones that don't serve you and the ones that aren't helpful, okay? Or at least reducing them and replacing them with thoughts and beliefs that do serve us. Okay, so here we're going to get a little bit nerdy and get a little bit diving deep into psychology and a little bit of information about psychology. So what are emotions? What are emotions? So emotions are psychological states comprised of thoughts, right? That's what we always talk about. Feelings, physiological changes, that's the reaction in your body, expressive behaviors, and inclinations to act. So a very complicated way of saying emotions are your thoughts, your feelings, your body changes, okay? Expressive behaviors, they're talking about like facial expressions or I read somewhere else where they said, what did they say? Expressions which can be seen by others. So like smiling or, your jaw clenching when you're angry, something like that, and inclinations to act. So emotions cause you to want to act. Here are a couple other definitions that I thought were a little bit better, slightly more concise. Not really more concise, but let's just break it down. Emotions are a fast track, inescapable source of information about how to stay safe, survive, and thrive in an ever-changing environment. Okay? A fast track, inescapable source of information about how to stay safe, survive, and thrive in an ever-changing environment. That's important because emotions are natural, okay? They're immediate. It happens, they happen right away. We don't have control over them necessarily. It happens involuntarily. And there's a purpose behind emotion. So there's a reason that we have emotion. A lot of times emotions keep us safe, right? If we're fearful of something, it is a protective behavior that helps keep us safe. Sometimes, though, those emotions can get in our way. So if you have extreme fear, like a phobia of something, right? You are afraid of crowds, agoraphobia. So you are afraid of crowds, gives you extreme anxiety, and you avoid those situations, right? That gets in your way of everyday normal functioning. And so it's problematic. As traders, we have situations when we need to operate without fear, and fear gets in our way. So even though it is natural, helps us stay safe, it can get in our way and cause issues for us, okay? But it is natural, it is normal, and it is generally helpful for us to feel these things. Same with disgust. There's a reason, a protective reason that we experience disgust. I know that that's not typically what we think of as an emotion, but that is one of the primary emotions. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And joy. Joy is emotion that causes us to seek out doing a certain behavior again and again, right? Something that brings us joy makes it more likely that we'll do that behavior again in the future. Here is another, hello, welcome, Evelyn. Thank you for joining us. No worries, that's all right. Another definition of emotions, 3 parts: conscious experience, that's your feeling, so your subjective feeling when you are experiencing an emotion, probably how you would describe that in your body, right? How you feel. Expressions, which can be seen by others. This can be in your face or in your body. So like body language or facial expressions. And then third, actions of the body. That's the physiological arousal. That could be like your heart rate changing, respiration changes, chemical changes in the brain, nervous system autonomic arousal. Okay, that's emotions. And here's one last one. Emotions are physical and mental states brought on by neurophysiological changes. So brain and physiological, that's the heart rate, the respiration, variously associated with thoughts, feelings, and behavioral responses. So as you can see, the definition of emotion is very complex. It's very complicated. There isn't really an agreed upon universal definition of emotion, but you get the point. It is the experience, right? The feeling that you have, the physiological changes, so how you feel in your body, and then the inclination to act or behave, okay? And that is coupled with your thoughts, especially when we're talking about psychology. In particular, it's your thoughts and your emotions. All right, and generally, again, the reason we have emotions are to help protect us. It says here, survival, threat detection, decision-making, and motivation. So again, survival, fear helps us survive. Threat detection, again, that can be fear as well. Decision-making and motivation. We do the things that bring us joy. All right, so during the 1970s, Paul Ekman identified 6 basic emotions that he suggested were universally experienced in all human cultures. So these are universal emotions, and he narrowed it down to 6 basic emotions. So we talk about, I would say 4 to 5 of these quite often when we're talking about trading. Happiness, sometimes called joy, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and then the one that we don't typically talk about, at least how it relates to trading, is surprise. Although, of course, trading can be surprising as well, right? That can definitely be an emotion that is involved as well. After the 1970s, he later expanded his list of basic emotions to include things such as pride, shame, embarrassment, and excitement. So there are all different types of variations in addition to the 6 basic emotions that he identified. Okay, so yesterday we had a conversation about the inside the mind of a successful trader, and someone asked about smiling, like a fake smile or a voluntary smile, if it can actually, in fact, cause a chemical change or a reaction in the body. If your brain can actually accept that message, basically, is what this person was asking. So here is a really interesting article. It says voluntary facial action. That means smiling on demand or like forcing yourself to smile, generates emotion-specific autonomic nervous system activity. This is a really fascinating article that addresses just what we talked about yesterday. So does a fake or voluntary intentional facial expression actually produce emotion? Will your brain actually receive that signal? And the video that I talk a lot about, the TED Talk with Dr. Amy Cuddy, she's talking about the power pose, hands on your hips, hands over heads, standing in a position of power. In fact, Paul Ekman, that I said about the 6 basic emotions, found that voluntarily making one of the universal facial expressions associated with emotion, such as smiling, frowning, those types of things, does actually generate physiological, so in the body, changes in some of the subjective experience of emotion. So if you're interested, I recommend you check out this this article. It's really fascinating. So I'm not sure if I I didn't put the one about the traders in there. I guess I might have to do a couple more parts to this series, because there was another article specific to traders, which was really, really fascinating. But basically what this article talks about, that again, actually involuntarily doing these facial expressions creates chemical changes in the brain and helps someone actually experience the emotion. So go ahead and Google that article out if you're interested. All right, so here we have the 3 elements of emotions. This is just a basic, easier way to break down what we're talking about when it comes to emotion. There's the subjective experience, okay? That's basically the interpretation of the experience, the physiological responses, and the behavioral response, okay? So what we do when we experience an emotion. And if you've been with me for a bit, you know that thoughts and beliefs are a major, major part of the subjective experience. How you interpret a situation has a large impact on how you respond, okay? So the example I like to give is your stop loss, okay? If you think that your stop loss is something that protects you, you will have a different reaction when your stop loss is hit than versus if you if you see it as like a fear triggering event, right? So that it's a negative, unpleasant, unwelcome event. There's a different response that you'll have based on the meaning that you attribute to that event, okay? This is, I'm sure you all have seen this. I think it's kind of interesting. These are the emotions of a trader. They're not really emotions because, this is a lot broader, but I think it's kind of interesting, right? So we have starting out optimistic, and then excitement, thrill, euphoria, right? That's really, really high level joy, anxiety, denial, fear, depression, panic, capitulation, despondency, depression, hope, relief, back to optimism, okay? Ideally, we're not experiencing this, but in reality, of course, we know that this is part of it, right? And our goal as traders is to achieve going through this cycle with, instead of like this, we want to kind of be like this, right? And by the way, you should know that everything that I'm saying here is a truism or whatever. This is stuff that I personally deal with every single day as a trader. I'm a trader too. And so I personally, these are all reminders to myself. I, by no means, am saying, this doesn't apply to me. I always think of it, my stop loss as an insurance policy. I don't, okay? I do not like to lose. I do not like it. And I am every day working on being okay with it, because it's frustrating, right? And the more I let myself experience that and feel that, the more damage I do, because I'm fighting against a basic principle of trading, which is losses are inevitable. They're going to happen no matter what. You have to accept the loss, expect, I don't know if you need to expect the loss necessarily, but expect that you do not know what's going to happen in the market. Anything can happen, and you have to be okay with that. So this is a continuous process. I think that there are probably traders out there who are either inherently better at this than most of us. I think there are traders out there that have so much experience that they're not really that impacted by it anymore. But for the most part, this is a normal natural reaction that we have. Emotions are normal, natural. Sometimes we use the term, emotional as like it's a negative thing. Having emotion is absolutely normal, absolutely natural, okay? But we are better served by figuring out how to rein those in and how to regulate the emotion and really rely on that rational, logical side of our brain, which is difficult, but is plausible and is feasible and is achievable. And I'm so appreciative to this community here, because I do think, even though, at least for me, this has been a tough couple of weeks, trying to trade this market has been challenging for me, probably in large part because of me, because of my own trader psychology. But I think that having this community is really, really beautiful, because we can come together, talk about what a challenge it is, and connect over this, right? If you don't have anyone to talk to about trading, it is really hard to communicate. I don't talk about this stuff to anyone except my husband is a trader. But other than that, I don't know anybody in real life that would be interested in hearing about these things, right? So I'm so thankful and so grateful that we can help each other through this, that we can normalize how hard it is to experience these things, but also work on smoothing out that curve, okay? Here's a couple more that I thought were interesting. Let me just see. Evelyn, my stop loss is my insurance. Yeah, we've got to say that. We have to believe that, because that is the only way to really accept, right? Watching on my phone, we'll have to check these out in the replay. Yeah, absolutely. I'll have this live on here, and then I'll re-edit it to a video so that you can see it more concisely. You're welcome. Welcome, Nicely Videos. Thank you so much for coming to check out the video today, or the live today. I appreciate that. All right, so here's another little graphic that I thought was kind of interesting. So again, this is just another variation where you start out at optimistic, excitement, thrill, euphoria. I love how the optimism side on the left says, wow, am I smart? Euphoria, that's where it says point of maximum financial risk, right? Anxiety, denial, fear, desperation, panic, capitulation, despondency, depression, hope, relief, back to optimism, right? And so I think these are pretty relatable, that we can see these different, this different experience as we're trading, right? We've all experienced these different variations of feeling, of emotion. These aren't emotions, but again, of sentiment as we're trading. And one last one here. This one's a little bit harder to read, but I thought this was cool too. Like, the risk is, if you kind of look at the earlier slide, it's a little bit easier. They're saying point of maximum financial risk at that peak there, right? That's when we're like riding the wave up. And then when we come down, and they're literally talking, I believe, about the chart here, where in the pullback, right, when we're starting to feel like, oh my gosh, that's the point of maximal financial opportunity. So our mental thought about these things doesn't really coincide with the reaction on the chart, right? Yeah, exactly. So Slim Boy said, seems like my feelings are according to the expansion of price. Right, absolutely. So our emotions kind of go along with this this chart action, right? Price action. Naturally, generally speaking, as price goes up, we're feeling so euphoric. If you saw me trade earlier today, I got into the trade, and as price went up, I never like reached euphoria or anything, but I felt like, oh, I'm sitting easy. You know, this is a good place to be. And as price started to go down, you know, my experience changed. It wasn't the same feeling anymore. I luckily never made it to like panic, capitulation, depression, any of those things. But you know, we are working to, it is inevitable that these emotions will exist within us to some degree. The goal is, you know, if we can just be like optimistic to there isn't really a good one on here, but if we can just like level it out a little bit, right? Okay, so I just thought this one was cute. And it is, again, it's another way of sort of looking at the risk. The max risk is at the very top because that's when the pullback can occur. And then the best opportunity is at the very bottom. And yet our sort of our feeling or our experience of these things kind of conflict, right? So when the risk is the greatest, we're feeling euphoria, right? Anxiety, thrill. And when the risk is the lowest or the opportunity is the greatest, rather, then we're despondent. So we're just working on kind of getting leveling these out and getting better mastery of these things. So just want to review real quick what we talked about yesterday. So again, most traders worry about which direction the market will go, worry about making profits or loss. I know I am guilty of this as well. What happens is worrying about these things, which are outside of our control, causes stress, causes unnecessary worry. And furthermore, the stress and unnecessary worry can lead to mistakes and impaired performance. So for most traders, this is what happens. And for successful traders, they know that the outcome after entering a trade or any time is out of their control. Okay, so they enter a trade when it's probabilistic, and then the outcome is totally outside their control. You can't control the market, can't control news that comes out unexpectedly, or the reaction to news that is planned. Can't control price action, can't even always explain price action. But there's no stress or unnecessary worry because they know that the outcome is out of their control. And so there's nothing to worry about. The focus becomes on fine-tuning what is controllable, right? Rather than worrying about what is not controllable. Hi, Richard. Welcome. All right. So there are two things that are controllable as traders. There are only two. What is not controllable is the market, things like that. What are the two things that are controllable? Let me know in the chat what you would say is controllable. What do you think? I say there's two. Maybe there's more, but I can think of two. As traders, what can we control? Your risk. Excellent, Slim Boy. Your risk and what else? Exactly. Richard said emotions and risk management. And I would totally agree. I would say emotions, meaning yourself. You can control your risk and you can control yourself, and that is it. That is all you have control over. You guys are such good participants. Thank you. All right. So the only thing that we can control is our risk and ourselves. And I don't know about you, but sometimes, yes, Marina said reactions. I don't know about you, but I will say sometimes controlling myself is a mighty, mighty task, right? I had a situation with my son yesterday where he had had this experience where he misbehaved, significantly misbehaved. And it wasn't with me. It was outside of the home, but he came home and I asked him to tell me about it, what happened. And he described it to me. And eventually he just got so upset. And he said, I'm so frustrated because he's been working on some things, trying to get better, trying to behave better, trying to make these improvements. And at first he was really remorseful and sad about it. And eventually he was just mad. And he said, we've already had this conversation. I already decided I was not going to do these things anymore. And here I am doing it again. Like he felt like he already addressed it and was really, really angry with himself and irritated with himself for falling prey to this thing that he, did wrong. And I just couldn't help but like resonate with that and relate to that as a trader. Like, I get it. I get it, buddy. I feel that same way about myself as a trader. When I intend to do certain things, and I do, when things are going well, it's easy to adhere to the plan, right? it's when they're not going well that it becomes harder and harder and harder. And just like for him, if he's well fed, well rested, is not on his, like playing video games or whatever, he shows up and he's in a great place to operate at maximum capacity, right? It's when he hasn't been well fed, hasn't been well rested, spent too much time, playing video games or whatever, that he is not his best self. And he was frustrated that he made a mistake. And I just thought that is such like us as traders. Like a lot of times I feel like, what an absolute toddler I am to go and make that mistake again, right? To some extent, I feel like there has to be accountability. We have to be accountable for our mistakes, and we have to own our mistakes and recognize that we're doing it. At the same time, what I said to him was, you're doing better than you were, okay? And you need to give yourself grace, move on, and try to continue doing that thing less and less and less. That's the same advice I think we need as traders, right? Okay, great. Own what you did. You made a mistake, all right? Own what you did and move on. Give yourself grace that you can do better and take the step to the next day, right? I'm reading, I'm going to talk about it sometime on the live. It's really great. It's a book called, I think it's called Trading for a Living by Alexander Elder. And he talks about Alcoholics Anonymous in the book, and that the goal of an alcoholic is to stay sober one more day. So your goal is not to say, oh, I used to be an alcoholic, right? Your goal is to say, I am an alcoholic and I'm trying to stay sober one more day, or I'm not trying, I am sober one more day. That's perfect for traders, right? Our goal is to risk the right amount. He calls it in the book a businessman's risk, to risk a businessman's risk every single day. And that's it. Don't take that sip of alcohol, show up every single day and stay sober one more day. Ultimately, that's exactly what we're trying to do here as traders. We're trying to stay sober one more day. I almost kind of think it would be interesting, how alcoholics will say like, hi, my name is Deanna. I'm an alcoholic and I've been sober now for however many days. I almost feel like maybe that could be really helpful for traders to say, and I've been, I don't know how you could phrase it, but like within a businessman's risk for however many days now, right? Because that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to survive one more day. And the way that we do that is not go on that binger, not go on that, that alcohol spree where we just lose our minds, lose our control, and throw everything out the window. Yeah, exactly. Reactions. So improving edge. So your edge can improve, but you don't have control over that. So you can work on that. That can be part of what you work on, but you really can't control it, because your edge in some markets is going to be great. In some markets, it's not going to be great. And you don't actually have control over that or not. You do have control over executing your edge, but you might trade your strategy perfectly for a month, let's say, and be in the red. And you might do an awful job trading your strategy and you could end up green for the month. So we really don't have control over that. That is a factor in what we're doing, but we don't actually have control over it. The only two things that we have control over is our risk and ourselves. All right. Okay. So when I asked on YouTube, what was the emotion that people most experience? And I gave 4 emotions. I said fear, anger, fear, sadness, and disgust. And by far, the biggest emotion that people said that they experienced when trading was fear. Okay, fear. And another way of thinking about fear, conceptualizing fear, is anxiety. Sorry, I have to sneeze, so I might have to stop here for a second. Is anxiety. So I'm not talking about like a clinical level anxiety, but that nervousness that you feel, the worry that you feel around trading, that might be what you experienced before getting into a trade. That might be what you experienced while in a trade, or honestly, it could be after a trade as well. Thinking about the future, or worrying about if you're going to be able to pass the challenge, or if you're going to be able to, achieve whatever goal or whatever it is that you're thinking about. And the reason that anxiety comes about, the reason that happens, this is super, super key and super duper important. The reason that happens is because there's an intolerance for uncertainty. So when we are not able in life or as traders to tolerate uncertainty, it creates anxiety. The issue is that uncertainty is all around us, right? My father-in-law likes to say there are only two things certain in life: taxes and death. Okay. So what that tells us is there is no certainty in life. And yet, when we're trading, a lot of times I feel an expectation that that the outcome is something other than just probable, right? We have this idea that if we trade this pattern or this chart setup that looks, just picture perfect, there's some degree of certainty. And we do all different kinds of things to try and increase the certainty, rather than just acknowledging and recognizing that trading is entirely uncertain. There is no certainty about trading, none, right? Anytime you take a trade, no matter how picture perfect, how excellent the setup is, there is no certainty about the outcome. Likewise, you could trade an awful looking setup and make money. Okay, so there's no certainty in the market whatsoever, no certainty in trading. Intolerance of uncertainty is the core of anxiety. Okay. So there are psychologists who have studied this and found that people who experience anxiety cannot tolerate or struggle with the idea of not knowing something for sure. And some would even prefer a known or a guaranteed negative outcome rather than an uncertain positive, or like a potential positive outcome. So think about that for a second. Somebody asked me, what was it that they asked me yesterday? I can't remember who it was, but somebody was asking me about kind of sabotage. They didn't use that word, but basically almost like asking about self-sabotage, that we if anyone can remember what they said, let me know. But they were asking about self-sabotage. And to an extent, that is kind of what this is, that a certain a known outcome, a known negative outcome, can sometimes be more favorable, or somebody might prefer that, than an uncertain positive outcome. And that all relates back to worry and an intolerance of uncertainty. Does that resonate with anyone? Do you feel that at all? I shared the example yesterday of me playing softball, being not very good, and catching a pop fly, and that kind of fits. It's terrible to admit, but at that time it was like I was more comfortable not catching it than really trying hard, not sure if I was going to catch it or not. So if I knew I wasn't going to catch it, that was better than trying hard to catch it, not sure if I could catch it or not. Okay. Tell me if that resonates with you. I want to know if that sounds familiar to any of you, that we would rather have a known negative outcome than an uncertain positive outcome. All right. So when you worry, sometimes you worry in an attempt to sort of gain certainty. So we worry and we look for all different kinds of information and possible solutions to every possible problem, because we're looking for some type of certainty. Yeah. Richard said, I feel like you're calling me out. I have lots of anxiety. I struggle with trusting others and just hate being in control of situations. I'm not laughing because it's funny, Richard, but it's just is so interesting how sometimes our brain just plays these tricks with us, right? It's like it doesn't make sense, and yet it is. That is the way it is. And I'm definitely not calling you out, but believe me, I'm calling myself out just as much as I am anybody else. Unfortunately, like when you are talking about trading, right, and trading psychology, I feel like it's frustrating because I have a lot of knowledge about psychology, but that doesn't always mean that I'm killing it on the psychological front, right? Little fun fact here, some research shows that marriage and family therapists have a higher divorce rate than the general population. It's kind of like that, right? Sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, I know this stuff and I still just can't do the right thing. Okay. And so I think that knowledge and like knowing these things is the first step, but it's not the last step. We still have to show up and practice and work at it every single day, you know? Um, and it's a muscle, just like anything else. It is absolutely a muscle. And sometimes we're going to relapse, but the only way to get better is to, this is my opinion, give yourself grace. Trading is absolutely brutal psychologically. It just is. It is absolutely brutal psychologically. There are so many opportunities for you to beat yourself up day in and day out. Heck, it's a game where you're going to lose 50% or more of the time, right? That's brutal. Nowhere else in life do we show up. Like, I'm used to being generally pretty good at the things that I do. Like, I just am, most of the things I do, I'm pretty decent at. When it comes to trading, even when you're good at it, you might still fail more often than you don't. Isn't that interesting? Doesn't that boggle your mind a little bit? So it really is such a challenging thing that we're trying to do as traders. There has to be room for grace for ourselves. We have to have grace. We have to speak positively to ourselves. Ideally, in life, we're speaking positively to ourselves day in and day out. But when it comes to trading, you kind of have to double down. You know, you have to double down and daily reflect on, okay, so I didn't kill it today. I didn't do awesome today, but here is what I did well. Here is what I want to do more of, right? Because you're not failing at everything related to trading. Even if you're here today, for example, well, you showed up to try and learn something to improve yourself. Okay. Maybe that's the only thing that we did well today, but that's something, you know, so we have to give give credit to ourselves to, in the areas that we are doing the right thing. Yes. Oh, Marina, I'm with you. I'm so glad, you know, in some ways I'm like, I'm sorry that it's like that, but also I'm glad I'm not the only one. And I'm sure all of us feel that way. Like, whew, it's so good not to be the only one that struggles with this stuff. And, you know, this is how we're programmed. This trading is so anti how we're inherently programmed. And that's what makes it such a task to master these things. I am continuously trying to come up with ideas for how we can support each other through this, you know, how we can get better because, you know, like for me, I know my strategy is effective. I know how to risk appropriately, and yet I don't always do it. And I don't always, you know, I am my own worst enemy when it comes to trading. And I think that's what you all are resonating with and saying as well. It's like, no, I am the problem. You know? Okay, so let me see where. Okay, so here it says, you may worry in order to gain certainty. So gain certainty. What does that sound like to you in trading? What is it? I don't know if this will make sense to you, but what is it that we traders do to gain certainty Someone already mentioned it, kind of. He already touched on it a little bit. What is it that we do to gain certainty in the market? What do you think? There's one thing that immediately comes to mind when I think of somebody trying to gain certainty in the market. Strategy hoppers, right? We've all been there. We've all done that. Either your strategy changes or your guru changes that you're following in the market, or your concept or principle or whatever. Yes, Slim Boy, methodology and back testing results. That's it, right? So back testing in itself is not bad, right? It's a part of what we do and what we need to do. This is why in the video that I did where I was kind of like, I'm not anti-back testing, but I'm anti-back testing to the level that I took it to personally, because I took it to the level where it's like, I am no longer testing a strategy. I am looking for certainty because I want to know that this thing works, right? That is problematic. That is no longer serving what I'm trying to do as a trader. That is problematic behavior, looking for certainty rather than accepting that the outcome is unknown, unknowable, uncertain, and you're looking for and only for a probabilistic method. That's it. And so when you're hopping strategy to strategy to strategy, or guru to guru to guru, or whatever it is, what you're doing is trying to eliminate uncertainty, and that is what is related to the anxiety that I keep saying you, but I mean what we are experiencing as traders. The best thing that we can do, this is on my next slide. I'll get to the next slide here. So this is interesting too. Chronic worriers often equate uncertainty with bad outcome. Isn't that true? As traders, when we take a trade, because we are not sure and we cannot know, so oftentimes we kind of expect a bad outcome, or we expect the worst. Nope. I am not. I think ICT is wonderful. I think it's great. I think that there's wisdom in quarterly theory as well. I think there is wisdom in supply and demand. And I am really trying to just recognize that it is not my setups. It is not my method. It is not anything other than myself. I am focusing on myself as the weak link in the puzzle. And I don't mean that dismissively. I'm not a weak link. I'm not weak, but I am the link in the puzzle that needs focus. And I think that's true for most traders. I don't think this is just me. I think this is true for most traders, unless, life is just easy sailing, smooth sailing as a trader. I think that generally speaking, after you have a strategy, check that off your list, you're good. You cannot have every single strategy, every single concept. You cannot have all of those things. You can only have so much, right? Risk management is pretty cut and dry. It's pretty basic. There are some nuance to it, but it's pretty basic. The biggest factor in your success or your demise as a trader is yourself. It's your psychology, it's your thoughts, your emotions, it's you. That's it. So no need to jump strategies for me. I know where I need to focus my attention. All right. So speaking of which, great segue, what to do. What are we supposed to do about this? It causes us issues. We don't accept uncertainty, creates anxiety, creates fear. What in the world do we do about it? And I have 3 suggestions for you, okay? 3 suggestions to help us cope with uncertainty, or rather with intolerance of uncertainty. So the first one is working on accepting uncertainty. And I will, in the lives, be very, I'm going to, I do this anyway, but I'm going to be even more intentional about saying, I have no idea what's going to happen here. This is the trade I'm taking. I'm not really expecting on the lives for anyone to learn from me necessarily. Like, I say the things out loud that I'm doing, which I actually do by myself as well. But the goal for me is to, 1, community, to have community on the lives with this awesome community that we're growing. I love that. I absolutely adore having community. And then two, just like I would really like to personally be able to model some of the behaviors that I'm trying to, my camera's acting up again. I got to keep my hands still, otherwise it thinks I'm giving it like, I don't know, it's hand operated, and it's not good because I use my hands when I'm talking. To model some of the behaviors that I think are really, really helpful and important. But the issue is I don't do it perfectly, right? So, but then again, that's not really an issue because that's life, and that's how it is as we are trading. It just, we're doing the best we can, and we need to give ourselves grace as we need it. And so working on accepting uncertainty. But part of the mantra that I really want to keep at is talking about how once you enter a trade, you have no idea. So there's no need to justify, there's no need to rationalize, right? I do like to say to myself what I was thinking and why I was thinking when I took the trade. But the reality is you can take the best trade in the world and the outcome is uncertain, and it always will be. You cannot change that. Continuing to worry about what is going to happen is an absolute waste of time. All right. Number two is to flood yourself with uncertainty. This is kind of the same thing. So the first one is working on accepting uncertainty, working on acknowledging that you do not know. You're only entering a trade because it's probabilistic per your method, but you truly do not know what the outcome will be. You can practice acknowledging that over and over and over again without doing anything to gain certainty. Okay, that's kind of key. So if you are repeating to yourself and acknowledging that this outcome of any given trade is uncertain and you're not doing anything to gain certainty, this is tricky because we do this in really subtle ways. So for example, checking the lower time frame to confirm that the trade is still right. Sometimes we do need to do stuff like that, but there are other times when we move into the realm of like trying to do something to get reassurance, to find certainty, that is problematic. And then the third is really just, I didn't say this on this, I said three, but there's really four. Mindful breathing in the moment. Oh, sorry, I have them all included. Mindful breathing in the moment, the mindset warm up, the visualization, and rehearsal. So those are all kind of mentalization exercises that you can do. Mindful breathing, that's the box breathing where we breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold at the bottom for 4. So mindful breathing help relax your nervous system, right? You're not in a fight, flight, or freeze state when you're trading. That's important. Preparing ahead of time. I think accountability is a good one that I'd like to try and figure out how to develop more on the Discord channel. Visualizing ahead of time and rehearsing in the moment. Those are all ways that you can help yourself reduce your anxiety with the underlying tone that really the goal is to become okay and comfortable with uncertainty. That's what creates the anxiety, and getting rid of that, alleviating that intolerance for uncertainty is what's going to bring peace while you're okay. So that's it. That's all I have for you. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. You can leave a comment on this video if you're watching on replay. Let me know what resonates with you, if you found any of this helpful. If anything stood out to you that you think, oh yeah, I'm going to try that while I'm trading, let me know. I would love to hear from you. And if you're still here in the chat, let me know what you think, what you will try, what you will take away from this, and how you think it might help you. I would love to hear. Any tricks to avoid over trading? Tips for over trading, I would say, include the mindset warm-up. So really thinking about, at the end of the mindset warm-up, we think about why are we here and why are we doing what we're doing. If you are over trading, by the way, anything I say, I am guilty of this too. I overtrade sometimes. I commit all the mistakes. So I'm not trying to call you out or be demeaning in any way, but If you are over trading, chances are you're seeking excitement in the market. The market is exciting. It is thrilling to take a trade. It's thrilling to make money. Even though it stinks, it's also thrilling to lose money, right? We get an emotional response to it, and our brains like that, to be perfectly honest. And so to avoid over trading, the best thing you can do is rehearse ahead of time what you plan to do. Have it in your trading plan. What is your plan? Rehearse that ahead of time before you're trading, and while you're trading, repeating to yourself what it is you're going to do. And as somebody who does not always do this perfectly, I can say, you got to do this every single day. And when you mess up, again, you got to give yourself grace and try to stay sober one more day. Okay. So if you mess it up today, you come back the next day and you try again. And perhaps somewhere in there, you might need to put yourself in trader timeout. I'm going to be in trader's timeout on Monday, to be perfectly honest. So I will be taking a trader's timeout and coming back on Tuesday. So I'm giving myself grace. Just like I said, my son got in trouble yesterday. He's going to come home from school at some point today, and I'm not mad at him, but he does have a consequence for his behaviors. And so just like that, we need to apply that same thing to us. I'm not mad, but there is a consequence. Okay. So I think that is the best option that we have as traders as well. Just like I talked about the other day, now I can't remember what Kelsey brother it was. I think Patrick Kelsey, where he chucked his helmet on the sideline, and he chucked it with all the players around, and somebody held up the helmet and like, here you go, here you go. And Andy Reid stepped between and said, stop, don't give him his helmet, stop. And then he went and interacted with Patrick Kelsey and was like, dude, get your, he kind of like elbowed him a little bit, get your act together. We don't have an Andy Reid to do that for us. And so as traders, we really need to do it ourselves, for ourselves. And also, I really like the idea of finding a trading buddy. And I'm hoping we can do something like this on the Discord, because that really would be helpful. In trading, we have ultimate freedom, and that's wonderful. And that's part of what makes trading so fun and so exciting, because we have, I'm here 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just like in my athleisure, whatever, because we just have freedom as traders. But with that freedom also comes the responsibility to rein it in. When you don't have a boss, you have to be your own boss. So I don't know if that's helpful, but hopefully something there is helpful. How to accept the anxiety and visualizing loss without going down the spiral. Yeah, that's good. How to accept anxiety and visualizing loss without going down the spiral. When you're doing these things ahead of time, so when you're rehearsing, I know Slim Boy, you had mentioned that you had been doing the visualizing losing ahead of time, and that had been helpful to you. I think that's the key, is you need to work on those things when your emotions, you can still experience the emotion and imagine the emotion, but you won't experience it the same level as you do in a live trade. And that's a good thing, right? So pilots, for example, I talked about, they have the chair flying where they're visualizing a flight. And then there's the simulator, which is kind of like back testing. And then there's the actual flight, which is like live trading. Okay. From chair trading to live flying, the emotion progresses. There can be emotion in all three realms, but the emotion progresses. And so the more work you can put on in the chair flying, the better you can prepare yourself to tackle that emotion, so that when you get to the simulator, there's more emotion, but you're better equipped. So that when you get to live trading, again, more emotion, but you're better equipped. But you have to keep cycling back. Okay. You have to keep practicing that. And maybe you don't always back test in between, but you have to keep at it, keep doing it over and over and over again. I think traders that trade really well and without any kind of, they still have challenge, but like less challenge It's from experience and practice and doing it over and over and over and over again. And contrary to what we think, it's not the method that they're, of course, they are executing the method over and over again, but what they're really working on, the skill that they're really honing, is the ability to accept the uncertainty, to shoot their shot and be okay with whatever the outcome. Yes. Wow. Look at you, Slim Boy. You got your psychology verbiage down. Very impressive. Yes. Progressive loading of anxiety. Exactly. So we talked a couple minutes ago about agoraphobia. So somebody who is like afraid of crowds, phobic around crowds, can't be in crowds. And the treatment, the most effective treatment, is progressive exposure, right? So you expose a little bit and then you retreat. You expose, allow the body and the mind to calm down, and then you leave. And then you try it again. Maybe you delve a little bit deeper. You expose, you allow the body to calm down and the mind to calm down, and then you leave. And then you expose, and so on. And over time, progressive overload, right? You calm that reaction down. You realize that your worst fear is not coming true. That, you can add that too. So somebody who is afraid of like flying or something, okay, when if they're doing like a progressive exposure, right, when they fly, part of what they're saying to themselves is, I did this, I accomplished this, and I didn't die. Okay, nothing bad happened. My worst fear did not come true. And that's the same thing you can utilize with trading. So instead of progressive exposure, it can be progressive risk, right? If you can do this with 1 micro, right? Maybe you can do this eventually with 2 micros. And if you can do this with 2 micros, eventually maybe you can do it with 3. And then if you can succeed with 3, maybe you can do it eventually with 5. So you're progressively exposing yourself. It has nothing to do in that point with the size of your account per se. It's about your experience and your tolerance for it. Because we are affected by how much money is at risk. And the more money that is at risk, the more emotion is involved. Great questions. Let me know if you have any other questions or comments, any other feedback. I would love to hear from you. And, if anything comes up in the end, go ahead and leave it on the video. And I read all the comments on the video as well and respond.